Thank you as always for listening to Fluff and Crunch. In this episode, Chris and I return to the controversial topic of AI text generators and AI art generators, and their use in the role-playing game industry and at RPG tables. If you like what you're watching or listening to, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave a comment, make sure to join our friendly Discord and get into the conversation. We would love to hear what you are thinking about this topic and what experiences you have with it. Good day, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well. What are you doing?
What, right now?
Yes, what were you remote controlling?
The TV we got to put in front of the running machine decided it wouldn't let Annie watch Netflix and just started having a strop. So I had to download an update for it. Hopefully that'll fix it.
Lovely. Well, how have you been over the last few, and have you done any gaming?
Yeah, so we didn't record for a week because I was away. In fact, a week and a half because I had parents even then I was away.
So nice pictures of vacation that look good.
Yeah, the night before kind of my last day of kind of normalcy. We played another game of Warhammer Wrath and Glory. We used the same characters but a different story. And that was quite good. And then we were planning to, it was quite clever. We were planning to jump it to another tier next time anyway, and the adventure actually you can play this different parts of the same adventure 4 times. It's like there's a war going on and you can play different parts of the same war but from different angles, which is quite cool. So so we're going to do that. And then I managed to play quite a few board games over the weekend with Mika and Annie. So we actually went to what would be my friend, my FLGS in Sheffield, because it does everything. It does board games and role-playing games and card games and miniatures rather than some of the other ones which only do sort of one thing. And they've expanded quite a bit, and they've got a little coffee shop there now. So we went and had lunch and played some board games there. Well, card games. So that was good. How about you?
Oh, doing very well. We finally got back to Kingmaker via Castles and Crusades this last Saturday and added a 5th player. Actually, the friend of mine who had played in the original running of the campaign like 14, 15 years ago is back, and I'm changing things. So it's been a while, so it's not like he can cheat with, special meta knowledge, but he joined the group and we had a cool way of blending him in. And I used some of the ideas that we had talked about for resurrecting a campaign, and some of them worked pretty well, and some of them worked less well. The providing things to read in advance is obviously built on the assumption that stuff's going to get read in advance, and even that I remembered everything correctly, which I didn't. So but it got going, and it was good. We're actually, after the next session, we will be done with that whole first book, and then we will move forward into the next. So we're good.
Stuff. So what are we talking about today then?
We're going to talk about AI again. In April of last year, we did an episode where we talked about AI, ChatGPT primarily. And I mean, it was, it's so much has happened and so much has changed in the last 10 months that there's a lot more to talk about. But we had said in that episode that, hey, we should come back and talk about this some more when both of us have done some more with it and just the issue has evolved. And so both those things have happened. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some of the different kinds of things that AI can be used to generate. And then we're going to talk, I think, primarily about our thoughts on, call it the politics of AI.
I think let's talk about art later. There's more to do.
Yeah.
Let's talk about quickly about kind of ChatGPT, just text-based stuff.
Yeah.
So I used it a little bit last year, which I've talked about previously. I created adventure outlines and like puzzle ideas and stuff, but I know you can do even more stuff now. Like it has a lot of game rules built into it, so you can create, like, it'll create you NPCs and monsters and for like big role-playing game systems, which is, that's really cool.
Yeah, now when we had done that episode last April about the beginning of all this, or at the beginning of all this, we were primarily talking about ChatGPT, and I know that there are other mass language model, plenty of different sites, but I mean, I'm going to focus primarily on ChatGPT because that's what I've got experience with. Now, I don't have the paid version, and I'm not interested in getting the paid version, but I've done some things. I've done some like free courses, and I've read a ton of articles about how to write good prompts. and how to use the system to get what you want out of it. And it's fascinating. I have used it to generate place and NPC names. I've gone in, actually recently I went in and I gave it a series of prompts that focused it on certain linguistic traditions, certain language groups, and then I asked it to create names that, at least to its quote unquote knowledge, aren't real but sound like they come from these language traditions. So I asked it to combine a couple of language tradition, languages, and then create names, place names, and people names that sounded like they came from that. And I was pretty satisfied. I mean, I said, give me a list of X many, female sounding names, X based on those language groups, X many male sounding names. There were some that sounded goofy that I just didn't like, but for the most part, that was really handy. And then for places, also, I've also used it to. It's funny, the whole thing about using ChatGPT is all about the quality of your prompts.
Yes.
You've got to be able to know how to ask it good questions and understand what it does when you prompt it. It's not just the questions themselves. It's understanding, like, when you pour the question into the pot, what does it do with it? And I think that one of the good things you can do with it is, that I've done with it, at least I feel, is that I've prompted it to kind of prompt me back. In other words, I've asked for lists of ideas. Like, I need a list of, like, I'll come up with an adventure idea, a very vague adventure idea with a couple of high points in it. And then I will ask for ideas to further flesh out the scenes or acts and the details. And it's not like I'm not taking it, I never use it exactly as is, but
No.
what it does is it acts in a way as if I was talking to you or talking to another person, like, hey, what do you think of this idea? Give me 3 ideas that you think of when you hear this. So I've used it to do that. And that's helped me for planning some sessions.
Yeah. So, I mean, until I've used it more, I can't really say, but I found it useful last year. It's kind of thing. I mean, I don't think you could write an entire role-playing game out of it. I think you could write a good chunk of an adventure and publish it, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's already people who have, put stuff on, say, DMG, who have just gone like, Chat GPT, write me a D&D adventure and get it to do the whole thing, and then you put it into stuff, just do the formatting yourself, and then put it on there, and then you go, and then get some money. I mean, how hard would that be?
What's fascinating, though, is that ChatGPT, unless you really beat on it a lot, there is a certain, it's like ChatGPT prose.
Yeah.
It has a tone that sounds like I don't know, it's not good. When you ask it to write long form, I don't know how to describe it, but it is distinct and it's stilted.
There are definitely, when I get bits of work at school, there are definitely things, and I think I'm pretty sure that someone they've used ChatGPT to write at least some of this.
Yeah.
Because some of it, the language is not how the pupils talk or how the pupils are written. And it looks a bit sus. So yeah, kind of.
Yeah. But I think you're probably right. I think that there are folks out there. There probably are people out there. I mean, we know students, but I mean, in terms of people turning around and selling things, it would not surprise me in the least that's happening. Have you used these text generators for anything else? I mean, you use them to create. When you say create NPCs,
I haven't tried doing it, but I've seen like other people talking about it, how they literally, like, statted NPCs for 2D20. I've seen this on 2D20 forums or Discords. People saying they've actually, like, the rules for 2D20 are in, I'm pretty sure it was Conan, but it might have been Star Trek people, like, saying, I've used it to create, other crew members or other people and stuff, because it actually has the rules in there. So it isn't just a case of it's got just ideas and just text things. It actually has, someone has inputted the rules of some of these games into it, because they've fed it, essentially. You just feed it stuff and then it can do it. So yeah, that's pretty cool, but I haven't tried doing that, so kind of think I should try now. But wrong window.
Yeah. So I think that, and I've heard of people talk about using it to, like you had said, you used it last year, where you kind of used it as a GM of sorts. And I've heard of plenty of people using it like that, either for solo play or for, just you don't have a GM. And so you're looking for, kind of a very rudimentary approach to running a story. And, and people have used it that way. I've also heard of people using it for with the Star Trek Captain's Log, Star Trek Adventure Captain's Log solo RPG, where
Yeah,
they
that'd be
look
really cool.
for ideas just to guide them through the tables. Because so far as I know, and I sure hope not, that those tables are not available or not haven't been sucked up by this thing. I mean, that's obviously a topic worth digging into, but I don't have the ability to. We don't have the knowledge to do it. But it's like, IP rights and things like that. And where's ChatGPT getting its stuff? But I've heard of people using it in a lot of different ways, like that. So the text generators, obviously, you can do a lot with. I even I forgot what it was, but a couple of months ago, I wanted to look at. Was curious what it could tell me about first edition D&D modules, like first edition AD&D modules. Could it sort them by topic? Could it give me a comprehensive list? And it actually did a really nice job of providing those things. And it was just I was just playing with it to see like what kinds of research I could do with it. So again, I think with ChatGPT, the big deal is learning how to prompt it well. That's what you need. But it seems like, yeah, people can get a lot of different usage out of it for ideas. Anything else on text stuff?
I was trying to see if I could get it to create my character for the role playing game I'm playing next, but it got the system wrong. The background stuff's all pretty good. But yeah, it's exactly what you said. It is dependent on if you give it clear instructions, you'll get better stuff back. What I do like is the fact that you can kind of go, that's not quite what I wanted. Can you build on that?
Yes.
And it'll take the last thing you give it and then it'll build on it more, which is, that's really clever because I've literally just like asking it to create a character. It's giving me like backgrounds and adventure hooks. And I've gone, no, I want stats for that character. Then it's giving me stats. Yeah. The stats are wrong, but it's obviously not been clear on the system. So
yeah, again, it's all about the quality of questions. And actually, I'll put some links to some of the articles that I've read about how to get better at prompting. And there are a couple of free online courses that are a couple hours long that have been useful. I'll put links to those as well in the notes. But yeah, I do like that iterative side to it, that you can present a set of requests, and then you can call back to those original requests and ask it to incorporate what it has produced differently. And format it differently. I figured out how to make it format tables and actually create tables that you can like copy out of it. And that's pretty handy. That's actually pretty handy. What about art?
A year ago, and I think I put it on the Discord. In fact, I'm going to go get the Discord up. A year ago, we did this. And at the time, we created 2 channels on the Discord. We created one for ChatGPT type tech stuff, and we created one for art. Yes. And I put some art I tried to create at the time, and it was awful. And then since then, I've gone back because like a year ago, it was actually hard to find decent art things.
Yeah.
And even the big ones like Mid-Journey, still a really big one. But Mid-Journey back then, like you could go on and you'd get a bunch of essentially a free trial. You get so many free things, and then it became very expensive. It's like $10 a month just for a handful of prompts over the space of a month. Really expensive. And you can find a lot that will charge you money, but I've managed to find quite a few decent ones, particularly mobile ones. I found quite a lot of mobile. You would do it on your phone where you can put in your prompt and then it'll show you an advert. And it's like, I don't mind waiting 30 seconds and an advert on my phone because on my phone, I'm pretty watching TV. I just ignore my phone and watch TV. And so, there's quite a few like that, but I found quite a few decent ones which are free in terms of like, you get so many credits a day, but that's enough as a GM to like put in a prompt. That's not quite what I wanted, tweak my thing, put in another prompt. And so, yeah, the change in the art quality between a year ago and now is massive. And you think in another year, it will be even better. So the one I've got behind me is something I did when I wanted like a a Danger Girl esque GI Joe type character, and I can't, I probably gave some other prompts, and this is what I got. Now a lot of it, it looks at first glance, it looks, looks very, very good. I'll point out some of the errors later, but the jump in quality is great.
Oh,
And I
it's
did
huge.
this like when I wanted to, I was thinking of doing, like I said, when I did my Outgunned Christmas thing, and at one point I was thinking of doing more of a cyberpunk thing, and I was doing a whole bunch of iterations on my like I wanted this like cyberpunk, like neon noir, like trench coat wearing detective, and I had loads of different things. Like some were more Asian looking, some weren't. Some had like all the rain going. Because there's loads of websites you can go and you can put lots of different options in, and you can change like the model and the settings, have it more anime, less, more realistic, and so many things you can change now. And you can find a lot of this stuff for free rather than having to pay. I mean, the paid stuff is probably better because it's been trained better, but then you're paying for that. But yeah, the leap in quality from where we were a year
It's
ago to where we
significant.
are
Yeah.
now is
I have not spent a whole lot of time. The image behind me I generated like a week or two ago, and at first glance, it does the trick. It absolutely does the trick for the vibe and the general setting that I wanted to convey for the village of Belgrade in Linian, which is in Aris. Okay. So that's looking west or looking east from the hills above Belgrade. Terrific. I've spent so little time learning. I've spent far more time learning about ChatGPT and how to prompt it. The AI art stuff, I've run into the same issues you have, is that so much of it gives you, like for the free versions, I simply refuse to pay at this point. I don't have a need. And so I have not done anything on my phone. It's all been on my desktop. And you run out of free credits like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. Now, I was happy with this. This kind of art, this kind of picture was terrific to use at the table to say, this is kind of what it feels like. And everyone's like, oh, that's cool. I just showed it on my iPad. The funny thing about it is that if you zoom in, it makes no sense whatsoever. Like the angles and the plane.
There's a building just over
it
your
makes no
shoulder.
sense. And there was another one that I rendered
path
of the
going
village.
down or something.
There was another version of the village that I rendered that makes even less sense. Like you get in there and it just it's which is kind of funny, but actually I don't care because it served its purpose. Like I see your girl, she has an interesting right hand.
Well, yeah. So at first glance, you were like, "Oh wow, that looks amazing," and I was like, "No, no, look over here."
And you look at that weird like club-looking Q-tip left arm. I'm like, what is going on?
And this bit's over. So you can see there's a jacket.
Yeah.
And then down here, wait a minute, but that's another part of jacket, and it's even worse.
It could be like cut. You know what I mean? It's like a waiter's type jacket.
But it's like
tails that come from her.
But it's just it's things like that. There are certain things where it just gets stuff wrong. The worst one tends to be anytime I ask for a character with swords. That's bad. You'll end up with a character, they've got a sword in one hand, and then out of their back is sprouting some more swords, and then there's fragments of swords in the picture. It's the kind of thing you could do it and regenerate it until you get better, or you redo it, and then you go into Photoshop, and then you
fix it. Yeah.
But yeah, things like that. Or if you want to have two, like, I mean, I've tried to put two characters together, and it like merges them together.
Oh yeah.
And then they've got like one body, but two upper bodies. And just like, oh, that's no, I didn't want that.
So many of these to me look like transporter accidents from Star Trek. Like they that's what they look like. It's tough because I can use this stuff for the art. I can do what I want to do with it, but I have not had a need or an interest in doing more. But I could see very quickly where the low ceiling in terms of my skill with it, but more so the low ceiling to access to the free stuff. If I wanted to do more, I would butt up against that pretty quickly. Have you done anything with music? Because there are AI generators for music now.
I have not. I want to try that. That sounds great.
I have, and it has been thoroughly dissatisfying.
Oh,
like I know, I don't know. I play guitar and bass poorly, and I haven't played like regularly for years. I don't know a ton about music theory, but like for example, a couple weeks ago, I went into one of these generators. It said it could make music, and I told it specifically to write a song in this key. All right, I gave it some specific, like, call it music theory, objective music theory directions that would make the thing sound creepy, and it produced something in a major key. I'm like, that's exactly not what I asked you to do. So the music generators seem, at least the ones that I've puttered with, seem to be much like art was a year ago. Like, you ask for a castle, you get a pineapple, and you're like, what the hell is that supposed to be? This is not helping me. I might as well just go learn some music myself. So yeah. What about the politics? Because I think that's where we should dwell the most.
Yeah, there was definitely a backlash. Well, there has been a backlash to AI art to the extent that companies seem to have been, a year or a year and a half ago, probably possibly using AI art, and maybe no one cared. But at some point over the last year, it's slightly longer than last year, because we can use the Modifius art example in a minute. But companies having to go out of their way to say, we are not using AI art. And like Wizards of the Coast has a lot of grief. I mean, on top of the OGL thing, this was like the next big bad thing that Wizards of the Coast did, because, some background for some, a Games Master screen or some cover art or something had some just kind of weird swirly patterns on it. And everyone kicked off, and they kind of, well, that's what we wanted. We just wanted some just random stuff. So it was okay. But then then they had some artists, people saying, well, that art was done using AI, and that this arguments with these artists saying, well, it was my art, but then I used AI stuff to sort of like polish it. So rather than polish it themselves, they used AI to take their piece of art and polish it. Because one of the things you can do, like, a year or so ago, AI art was almost always, it was text to image. Now you can do image to image. You give it an image and say, I want something like this. Yeah. So the kind of stuff you can do now, you can create video with it and stuff.
Well, and also, I mean, from what I understand, I don't do graphic arts at all. Like, my art is so far beyond pedestrian. It's sad. It's not something I have worked on this like earlier in my life, and I realized that I was not given a talent. God did not give me a talent to draw. So, and I accept that. But I know that like Photoshop now has tools built into it that are powered essentially by AI.
Yeah.
That to, as you said, just broadly, to polish art. And I mean, I've read, heaven forbid you go on Twitter. It's like a cesspool it's just like argument du jour, like stupid, mindless argument du jour. But I know that there have been a couple of kerfuffles over the last year, as you said, over AI art usage. And I think one of the problems with the idea of AI art is that you go, well, what defines that?
Yeah.
Is it a piece of art that someone generated using AI and they used it as is? Is it something that they generated with AI and then they tweaked a whole bunch? Is it something that they took, as you said, image to image? They took something they made and changed. I mean, the problem is there are so many different definitions. What is that? Like, I mean, technically, here's an example. Like, you've heard of Grammarly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't use that. Okay. I don't use that kind of stuff. But that's kind of AI powered. So technically, if you're writing an essay and you're using Grammarly and you're taking its advice, is that AI generated work? I mean, the problem is it's a continuum. Yeah. And it's become, as things happen in social media, grossly oversimplified and underdescribed.
Yes.
I think it's a huge question, but the problem is I don't think the question's not being asked in a precise enough manner. It just turns into another like stupid argument. But I know that WotC had a couple of iterations or arguments over AI being used, art being used in their stuff or not, or this or that or whatever. I know and I do want to talk about this. The 2D20 World Builders program does not allow AI generated anything.
Let's come back onto that, because we want to take that a bit further with another thing. I think you've hit the nail on the head with the idea of people really should define it and accept different definitions in different ways.
Yeah.
Because you see a lot of adverts for like your Photoshop example, and like my Google Pixel phone will use AI to remove stuff, Well, a lot of this time, it's not really AI. It's not thinking. It's clever, well-programmed, software code,
Yeah.
which is doing something. But if they put AI on it to help you, then that sounds good. No one's going to call. People all call Alexa, oh, it's an AI. It's not. It's an assistant,
Yeah.
and it's not even virtual reality. It has a virtual intelligence. It has a bunch of well-programmed answers to responses, and it'll do stuff. That's what things on Photoshop and like photo editing things are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, yeah, help me out here, and it kind of goes, all right, well, and it uses some clever software to do it. That's not AI. But by the same thing, when we're talking about AI art, people really should be clear. Oh, like, well, is this like, so is this literally generative AI from scratch? It's
Yeah.
AI all the way, and you've done nothing. Because yeah, you can see where there's an issue there, because that could be taking someone's job. Now, if it's the opposite of that, if it's almost like regenerative art, where someone's done the art and you're being paid, no, if WotC is paying someone to do the art and they choose to then use some AI art at a point in their process, but they hand painted the thing and then they scanned it and then they did some tweaks and maybe they put some element in the background, that, who got they got paid for that. They did their job. Now, if they're skimping on their job using AIR, that's WotC's thing to say, no,
Yeah.
you're not doing your job
Or
properly.
WotC's thing to make a decision as to what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the issues is, one, that these definitions, there are so many different, ways to define and describe this, and that's not been done well at all. And that's
No,
not a surprise, because people
it's a buzzword now.
it's a buzzword. Yeah.
AI, if it's helping you because there's AI in your car or AI in your phone or AI on your TV, that's going to help you. That's a good thing. AI art, that's bad because that's replacing artists. AI writing, that's bad because it's replacing writers. I mean, you think, well, wait a minute. What happened? What happened to robots and factories? 100 years ago, every car was made on a production line by people working away.
Yeah.
That nowadays there's one guy who's monitoring a bunch of robots putting a car together by themselves. That's progress. I feel sorry for people if they do lose their jobs to AI, but as with any kind of technology, the jobs stop being in the thing it's replaced. The jobs become in the people writing the code that is doing the thing. Yeah. So it's the same as
in other areas. The lack of precision in these arguments, I think, is like the gasoline that's being a lot of the gasoline that's being poured on these. And I also think that because this is so new and because this has developed so quickly, there is an understandable lack of like broadly accepted or defined standards for, well, how do you tell people? Like if you're a company and if you're WotC and you decide to hire X many people to do XYZ art, and then you decide to take some pictures and you take some of your in-house people and you decide to take some of those pictures and mush them together in some way or another, combine them, and you use some kind of AI tools. Like, is there a standard? There isn't for transparency with that. Is that something that I mean, think about this. You just mentioned, an artist painting or drawing and then scanning. Well, there are plenty of artists now who work entirely in the digital world. Like there is no physical piece of art.
Yeah.
They're using a stylus and other kinds of things on a screen. So, it just, things move quickly and people don't have a discussion. They don't want to have a discussion, I think, so they end up just having an argument.
That's why I've seen companies now just kind of jump together and going, right, oh, AI art bad.
Yeah.
So it brings us back to the point you were starting to raise of the Modifius point. It's like you said. Actually, I don't even know what Modifius have said about their own art.
I don't either.
But in the world building program, they said your work can have no AI art.
No AI anything. Now, recently, this was about a week ago, I didn't have an opportunity to listen to the entire episode, so I absolutely don't want to. I will say what I heard. I will repeat what I heard and summarize it, but I'm not trying to say that I speak for the entire episode. There was an episode of Continuing Conversations, which is a Star Trek Adventures focused podcast, actually with Jim Johnson and Michael Dismuke, who we know Jim Johnson is the line editor for Star Trek Adventures, and Michael Dismuke is one of the freelance writers for that. And they do great work there about Star Trek Adventures. And they had Chris Birch on from Modifius like a week or so ago. And their primary topic was AI stuff. And where I left off in the conversation, they actually had a very thoughtful conversation about, or were having that when I dropped off, about the how AI art especially can provide an advantage to the, let's just say, quote unquote, the little guy, because the sole creator, or the like the scrappy kid who wants to, one day, break into the big leagues or something like that, that person does not have the financial, the staffing. They don't have the resources. That's me. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't have the resources. They were talking about me. I don't have the resources to do art and cartography for Aris the way I would like to. I don't. Um, I would end up blowing money that I don't have. And given how much you make off this stuff, I would never make it back. I would be spending money to put my game
Yeah.
in people's hands. That's ridiculous. And
Well, I
they
mean,
talked about,
I've done that with 3D art. Like when I first started doing art for like DM's Guild and stuff, I was like, oh, I want decent art. You
mm,
look online, it's either copyright or the Creative Commons stuff isn't good.
yeah.
I don't use that. I can't draw my own art kind of bad. The other option was, all right, I fell into the world of creating 3D art, and made a lot of my own 3D art. But I spent a fortune on that stuff. I've definitely spent way more on like paying for the models and costumes and lighting and all that stuff than I've ever earned back. Now, I've
Yeah.
actually also enjoyed doing it, so then it's a different thing.
There's
But
benefit you get.
I have spent so much more money on the stuff enabling me to create art to put into things which I have then sold,
Right.
than I've made back. So whereas with AI art, I could do it for free,
Yeah.
and I could create stuff that would be half decent and
Yeah.
throw it into my things. Because like you said, I cannot afford, especially up front, I can't afford as just a little guy releasing a few things.
Yeah.
I can't afford to pay an artist to do that. Now that's not because I don't want to pay an artist. It's because I
That's just
cannot
called
afford
reality.
it. Yeah.
It's tough because the way they went through it, and I think they made a lot of sense. Is like, that this AI, especially with art, does provide, it provides a, like, a call it a leg up to the little guy. And yet I didn't get to a point in the episode, and I need to go back and finish listening to it, but they didn't come back to, or I didn't hear them at least, talk about the prohibition of using the AI art in the World Builders program, which would
Mm.
actually seem to contradict some of the advantage. Like, they would, I don't know what they said, if they said anything, but it's hard because where do you draw the line? Like, where do you draw the line at, like, look, you're the little guy, and so you get to use this thing, or now you're not the little guy, but then beyond that, it's like, whose business is it to tell you can't do your
Yeah.
business this way? It's really hard. It involves so many subjective opinions that
Yeah.
are values based. Like,
I
how do
think
you
the case of
call?
I think in the case of the World Builders program, it would come down to, if you look at the publisher on that thing, it says Modifius.
Yeah,
It doesn't say you or me, it says Modifius. And if you're using AI art and someone goes, oh, look, Modifius are using
right.
AI art, they're supporting the use of AI art, and that would look bad for them. So,
Yeah,
as
you
much
get
that,
the troll in his basement
yeah,
screaming about that, and then that becomes a thing they have to deal with on
yeah.
social
So
media, which
it's
is
a lot
ridiculous.
easier for
But you're
them to
right.
say no AI art at all, which is bad for us. It makes things harder for us.
Yep.
And they get less stuff made for their platform, which we've said a bunch of times now.
Yeah.
Um, but it saves them the hassle of some troll in a basement having a go and say Modifius supports AI art.
Yeah,
They've clearly
Modifius is
said
driving.
we do not.
Modifius is destroying creators and this, that. It's just
Yeah,
ridiculous. And the sad thing is, I think all of us can see that something would climb out from underneath its bridge and start howling about that and hashtagging about it and crap like that. And Modifius would then have to come out and say,
yeah,
"We're so sorry. We blah blah." This kind of stupid ritual of public social media apology. It's like they don't want to deal with it. I don't blame
oh
them.
no,
I get it.
well, yeah. I mean, I think that's why if you were a small independent publisher and you were doing this like a Kickstarter, you were just releasing stuff on Itch or Drive-Through, it'd be easy enough for you to put in a thing that says, I am going to be using AI art, but let's say if it's on Kickstarter, if I hit this stretch goal, is I'll pay for artists. And at this stretch goal, I'll
Yeah.
pay for even more artists. But
Yeah.
my base version is AI art. And if you're just doing something yourself and throwing it on Drive-Through, you just put a message and you say, the art in this will have been created using AI art. But if I sell pick a number copies, I will look to replace that.
Yeah,
Now,
and
if
I'm a
people
big
aren't happy
fan
with
of.
that, just don't buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And here's another thing also. I'm a big fan of like do business legally, do business ethically, but do business the way you want to.
Yeah.
If you don't ever want to hire an artist, don't.
Yeah.
But I think you should be transparent about it and then let
Yeah.
the marketplace, let consumers, would-be consumers make a decision. Like if you decided to do a Kickstarter and you're like, hey, I'm going to deliver this to you and all these extra things that are going to be really great because I'm not spending money on art. Well, then someone's got to make a call. Like, do I support that? Am I cool with that? Am I okay with that or not? Let the consumer
Well,
make the decision.
or the other thing you do is you go, right, you're going to have two versions. There's a zero art version with no
Yeah,
art,
yeah, really.
or there's the art with the version with the AI art, which looks amazing. You can pick which one you
Yeah.
want to use.
Well, and in that case, I would say there. I mean, there should not like I would if I had the choice, I wouldn't like, I wouldn't make that a requirement. Yeah, I'm not a fan of like these blanket requirements that are based in like one group's views of things that everyone else has to dance to because they say like Kickstarter says, no, you have to do that. I think that'd be heavy handed and stupid. I am a big supporter though of transparency. And especially when someone is selling something like I would like to know that which you are portraying this to be is what it is. And I think because this is a touchy subject, the art, I would want to know. And I would not want some dreadful, I wouldn't want to get a book, then you're reading through it and you're like, oh goodness, this is Chat GPT prose. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that at all because it'd be a painful read. It'd be like reading bad advertising copy written by the summer intern because that's how that stuff comes across, like a little
Yeah.
overwrought and not very good. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I said, I can totally see for the little guy, the me, that this would be helpful. I would love to be able to fill Aris with art that fits the vision that I have for it, but I absolutely don't have. I just put a new roof on my house. I absolutely don't have the money
Yeah.
to pour into something that has made me some money, but there's no way that it would ever,
And that's the thing is
no way I would ever come out in the black from it.
there'll be some people that want to have this argument, but you know full well that half the people that want to have this argument want to have the argument for the argument's sake, and they don't care. The kind of people, they have
Yeah.
no intention of buying the product that you're going to put in AI art, whether
Yeah.
it's got AI art or you've paid for an artist. But at least they get to go and stand and have an argument about it.
Yes.
And there'll be some people who genuinely want to have the argument. Look, this is costing people their livelihoods and so on. It's like,
Well, they
yeah,
want to have they potentially want to have a discussion, even if they're
yeah.
heated about it. You've got those folks, and you're right. Then you've got people who they are inclined to throwing bombs.
I think at the moment it's pretty clear. If you can afford to pay for artists, then you should do. And if you can't afford to pay for artists, and there's this other thing that'll help you out, then don't. But at some point in the future, the big companies are going to realize that the amount of money they can save by not paying for art is more than the money they will lose from the people that aren't going to buy it.
Potentially.
And that, that's the way it might go.
Well, and then you've got
people have to make a choice of,
yep.
I don't want to buy this because it used AI art.
There's another issue also, and this is in U.S. courts now in varying, degrees in different places. The question is, what's training this? Like AI, the text generators and the art, what is training? Where is this stuff coming from? I mean, we all know that, you can get free things that shouldn't be free online. It's not hard. We know that. Yeah. I remember like a year and a half ago when I started sponsoring the game club at this high school nearby, one of the kids who was running for like vice president or something like that made his pitch was that he knew where to download all the different books for D&D 5e for free. And I stopped him and I was like, oh, I don't want to have to do this, but I had to do it. I was like, look, that's intellectual property theft. You can't do that. And I explained to them like, listen, when you do something like that, you are actually you're putting downward pressure on that company's ability to be able to stay open to give to deliver that stuff. And so my question, longer term, and this is like outside of I think, this episode, but that question of intellectual property rights as to where did this training come from? How are these models, these programs, basically, how are they being trained, and are they already trampling on the creative work of artists who are out there? So if you're not only are you like pushing some dude out of a job, but you're also stealing work that he and she and others like them have already produced. That's a really thorny question.
I think in the terms of art, 100%, that is what they are being fed images.
There's no way not. I can't imagine.
Exactly. There is no way. It's not like they are working from a base of nothing. Right. And they're learning how to draw from scratch. They are. That's why you get so many errors. They are taking existing art and they're looking at how to merge them. And they've been fed with art and they learn how to create new art by using existing art. And the very fact that these rules exist in the games, that you can go into ChatGPT and ask for certain role-playing systems. Those role-playing systems have been fed to ChatGPT. Yep. Otherwise, how could it possibly create you a character for that role-playing thing? Well.
And it's not all.
Surely that's copyright infringement.
There are 2D20 things that you can't find because, I mean, especially with the free version of ChatGPT, because it's only was only fed information like up to a certain point. So anything that was out there, and you assume, well, like out there, that means like wide open and open to anyone's, say, Google search, or has it been scraped up through unethical means? That's worth that's a question that I don't think OpenAI and these other folks have been able to, or willing maybe to answer fully. But back to our original point, for a GM or for players.
For GM, and I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I agree.
I think when you start going into the publishing stuff, it becomes murky and awkward. You get into arguments. For a GM, it's very straightforward. It's going to save you a ton of work in terms of writing and ideas. And if you're one of the people who struggle with ideas, for solo GMing, that is brilliant again. And for creating, just like you've got, I like creating characters, so I can say, this is what this person looks like. For creating backdrops, for this kind of stuff is invaluable. Because otherwise, I mean, the other alternative, what I always used to do is going on, Pinterest or going on Google and just searching for the piece of art that I want. It used to be I'd be searching, I can't find the art that looks like what. Now I can go to the AI, I want a piece of art that looks like this, and it gives me it. And it might have errors on it,
but again,
this is what the guy looks like.
You're trying, like with the town of Belgrade behind me, the village of Belgrade. I'm just trying to convey a sense.
Yeah,
I'm not. This isn't I'm not asking for them to go in and like, measure how big the window is so they know if they can climb into it. It's just I just need to present you with a sense. Exactly. It's like when you listen to a song and the song opens in a minor key, it opens in D minor, you feel sad because that's what D minor does. I don't need to, like, beyond that, like, there's a whole other conversation about what comes next. But if I'm just using it for those things, that's terrific. The art side. And ChatGPT, if you learn how to prompt well, you can ask it efficiently and you can get decent responses that will make you think. And I think that's really helpful for GMs as well. Some of my players in my current campaign used an AI art generator, I don't know which one, to create their character portraits. Terrific. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the big issue, and you hit it, is when the dollar signs.
Yeah.
When those come in, when do those come into play that you are then using this to generate, as opposed to, I'm just using this at home? I think that's a big dividing line, but moving over that dividing line is so complex because there are so many different layers, as we talked about.
I think primarily from a player and GMs playing a role-playing game, it's amazing. It's super helpful. And if you haven't tried it, I genuinely think that should. Maybe in another year, it'll be so advanced that it'll replace GMs. Do you know what? I wouldn't care. Because if I get to sit down and play a 3-player role-playing game with ChatGPT being my GM, great.
I would not like that. Because
I don't get paid to be a GM, so yay. Go ChatGPT.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So those of you listening, I'm sure you've got thoughts about this. So let us know them either in the comments here on YouTube or join our Discord. The links are all below. I would love to know personally what you've used any of these generators for. What did you do to get better at using them, if anything? And where you like, have you had any like negative experiences? There is any kind of thorny side that we didn't address directly or imply? I'd love to have a conversation about this because again, it isn't going away. That's for darn sure. For better or for worse, it's not going away. And a tool like this, I think it's best to learn what can be done with it and to use it well and to use it ethically. But again, even that last piece, I mean, that's a values question, which you can't nail down and say that's the only way. That's really hard.
Yep.
All right.
There we go.
I'm gonna go generate a book and sell it. No, just kidding. Thank you, as always, for listening to Fluff and Crunch. You can join our Discord, you can subscribe to the podcast, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, all through the links in the show notes. Thanks again. Have a great day. We look forward to talking with you.